So a spiritual awakening is supposed to bring more peace, more clarity, and more connection to your life, right? So why does it sometimes feel so incredibly lonely on that path? If you're feeling isolated on your spiritual journey, then just know that you're not alone. In fact, isolation is really one of the biggest hidden struggles of spiritual growth. And today in this video, I'm going to show you why this happens, and more importantly, how you can face it and move through it. Because trust me, as difficult as this may seem, and as isolated as you may feel at times, this isn't the end of your journey. It's really the bridge to something even greater. Personally, I really have gone through a ton of spiritual growth in the past few years. And I remember when I really had like a spiritual awakening and started becoming more interested in these themes, I remember just how incredibly lonely it was at times. It's so rare to find people who have the same experiences or the same interests. And so for you, it might be amazing because you've discovered this new part of yourself that is so exciting to explore, and you're questioning more and more things about the world. But at the same time, it's often hard to find people that can relate to that. So first, let's talk about why this actually happens. And when you go through a spiritual awakening, your energy shifts, and your thoughts, beliefs, and even the way that you see the world start to transform. So one thing that often happens is that your frequency really changes. And so as you grow, your energy and your frequency shift. And some people in your life may no longer resonate with that new version of you, that higher frequency version of you. And that can be difficult, and it can feel very isolating. So it's really like tuning into a different radio station in a way, that some people, as you shift your frequency, can no longer hear your frequency. And that's totally okay. We have to become accepting of that as part of the process. Another very common thing is you start questioning everything. As you go through this spiritual awakening process, suddenly you realize that so much of what you once believed was actually programmed into you. And this can be a really uncomfortable and scary thing to go through. You often also start craving like deeper and more meaningful conversations and interactions with other people. But not everyone around you is on the same page. And of course, this can create distance, making you feel at times like an outsider in your own world and with family and friends whom you have known for ages. Also, the spiritual awakening process is about dissolving the old identity so that there's space for this new identity to blossom and come into your life. So it's a process of shedding these old beliefs and at times relationships and habits, things that no longer serve you. And going through that can be, again, very lonely and difficult and uncomfortable at times, especially when we're going through that process and the new life and relationships aren't quite there yet, but yet you've lost certain aspects of your old life. So you're stuck in this limbo almost of transition as you're going to the new version of yourself. So how can we face all of this? One of the most important things we can do is learn to shift our perspective of what's happening. So first, I would challenge you to reframe this sense of isolation that you feel really as a sacred transition. What if this period of solitude and even discomfort, it isn't a punishment, but really a preparation for something larger? Think of it that way. Think of it as you being given the space to find yourself and align with the right people, the people who will truly resonate with the true you. And instead of focusing on what's missing in your life or what is no longer there, recognize that this is really, it's a temporary process. It's a process in a way of cleansing, of making room for connections and people and new beliefs and new habits in your life that truly align with this new version of you. It's also important to remember that we are never truly alone, even though it can feel very isolating and lonely going through this process. So even if it feels like no one around you understands, remember that there are countless other people walking the same exact path. And in a way, we're all energetically connected, even if we haven't met yet. And so one thing I would encourage you to do, if you haven't already, is look for different groups online. I have found some amazing communities on School, for example, SKOOL. There are some great communities dedicated to really everything, but especially this world of manifestation, meditation, spirituality. So go out and make some effort to find your tribe, and you'll be pleasantly surprised with how many people are actually on a similar path to your own. And the really cool thing is that, not in an ego-driven way, but you'll often find that even though you're maybe struggling with certain things, you're farther ahead than many people on that same path. So just remember, we're all on this journey and we're just at different stages. And the best thing we can do is to help support one another. So that really brings me to my last point, which is this is also a process of finding, you could call it your soul tribe, people you resonate with, but finding that community that really resonates with you. So it could be an online community, it could be people, maybe you have a meditation or a spiritual group near you, but just finding the people who are like-minded and supportive of what you're going through. Because again, I have been very blessed to have some amazing people in my life who understand what I'm going through and have supported me. And the thing is, when we expect to be isolated, when we expect this journey to be difficult and lonely, it is. But when we flip that, again, it gets into law of attraction and all of that. When we flip the expectation and say, yeah, this has its lonely moments, but at the same time, there are so many people out there going through something similar. When we shift those expectations, we actually start attracting those positive connections into our life. So again, to wrap all this up, here are some very practical steps you can take to sort of facilitate this process and minimize some of those feelings of just loneliness and isolation as you're going through your spiritual awakening or just your spiritual journey in general. So first, as I had mentioned before, engage in spiritual communities. I mean, the internet has made it easier than ever before to find your people and find your tribe. So put yourself out there. Look into, like I mentioned, school groups, Facebook groups, local community groups, or a local meditation group, anything that has an environment where you can find those high vibration connections and people who you can support and they can support you. A second thing is just learn to speak your truth. Now, this doesn't mean that you have to tell every single person that you meet a 30-minute explanation of who you are and where you're at on your spiritual journey. No, but if someone asks, or if you have a connection with someone, don't be afraid to share what's going on. Because when you express your authentic thoughts, you naturally will attract people who are, people who resonate with what you're going through. So I'm not saying you don't want to you just meet a stranger and you throw it all out there. I'm not saying that, but when you do meet somebody and you have a connection, don't be shy to sort of, share what you're going through and what your thoughts are. So another thing you can do that is very simple and very practical is just take time for yourself. So for example, spend time in nature, go to the beach, go for a walk in the park, just take the time that you need to process a lot of the stuff that's going on. As you're going through this spiritual awakening process, you're having new, emotions and beliefs and things come up. A lot of things come to the surface. So just learn to give yourself the time that you need and the alone time that you need to process all of this. And I've personally found that just taking time for my own routines, whether that means going to the beach or going out for a walk, but just spending time, or even going to the gym can work, but spending time by myself just to clear my head is really helpful. So if you're feeling isolated on this spiritual awakening process, just remember that you're not alone. And this is a temporary phase, and it's a bridge between the old you and the new you. So embrace it. And the more you embrace this difficulty and you embrace this period of your life, the more you'll get out of it and the faster you will align with the right people. So how many of you have experienced or are experiencing right now this kind of isolation and loneliness on your spiritual awakening path? And what are you doing to move through it? Let us know in the comments below so we can support each other on our journeys. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.